Welcome to a love story written not on paper, but among the stars, a tale that the heavens themselves lean closer to hear. The moon waits for his words, because she knows they were written for her, the sacred confession of Sheikh Hamdan, the poet prince whose heart spoke a language too eternal for earth alone. This is not a story of a man and a woman, it is a story of two souls stitched together by destiny, witnessed by the sky, and immortalized in verse. Every night, when the moon glows above Dubai, she waits, because she knows that somewhere beneath her light, his heart is still writing her name. He was not just a poet, he was a constellation in motion. His words were stars scattered across silence, forming patterns that only one woman could truly read. She was not near, yet she was everywhere. Every poem, every whisper, every breath he wrote carried her reflection, the same way the moon carries the light of a sun she can never touch. And so, between his ink and her glow, the world found a love that defied boundaries, time, and reason. When night descended over the royal palace, his solitude shimmered. The world slept under luxury, but his soul roamed the desert sky, seeking her in the silver glow that hovered above. He spoke to the moon as though it were her messenger. If she can hear me, he would whisper, tell her I am still writing, still waiting. The moon listened like a lover who had memorized his voice. The desert wind carried his verses upward, and she, bathed in her eternal light, replied with silence, a silence that only true love could understand. His poetry often seemed celestial, not because it mentioned stars, but because it felt like them, distant yet burning, unreachable yet radiant. People adored his words, reciting them at weddings and quoting them in devotion, unaware that each line was written in remembrance of one soul. The world thought he wrote for everyone, but the moon knew, every syllable, every pause, every ache belonged to her. His poems were not expressions of imagination, they were fragments of prayer. He had once told a friend, the sky is my diary, and the moon is my confidant. That truth lived in every verse he composed. When he wrote of light, he meant her smile. When he wrote of oceans, he meant her eyes. When he wrote of silence, he meant the distance between them, vast, aching, infinite. He did not need to name her, for even the heavens already knew. It was as if creation itself conspired to guard their secret, turning every night into a ceremony of remembrance. There were nights when his heart felt heavy with longing, yet the sight of the moon steadied him. She became his anchor in the endless tide of royal duty. Amid the noise of crowds, she was his pause. Amid the applause, she was his peace. He could not hold her, could not see her, but he could feel her, and sometimes, that was enough. For a love written in the stars cannot fade, it only changes constellations. The moon, in her quiet grace, watched him write for years. She had seen him grow from a young dreamer to a man who carried the weight of both kingdom and emotion. And through all his victories, she knew his truest battle was not on any field, it was within his chest. She had witnessed his eyes glisten when he wrote lines too honest for the world to read. She had been his silent witness, his celestial confidant, his eternal muse. The people called him Fazza, the poet of hearts, but to her, he was the voice of eternity. She recognized his soul even when the world saw only the crown. His words, born of devotion, floated beyond time, touching not just hearts but stars themselves. The universe seemed to pause when he wrote, as if the cosmos itself bowed in reverence to love so divine, so fearless, so pure. The moon glowed brighter on those nights, for she was proud to be the keeper of his truth. He often imagined her reading his words somewhere, under the same sky, her eyes lifting toward the same moon. He hoped she understood the secret language written between his lines, how every metaphor was her reflection, every pause her breath. He prayed she knew that even when duty changed,
There were nights when the moon lingered longer than usual over his palace, as if she too was reluctant to leave his company. The courtiers never noticed, but the guards sometimes whispered that His Highness stayed awake until dawn, standing by the window, his gaze fixed upon the glowing sky. What they could not see was the quiet conversation unfolding in that stillness, a conversation without words, only emotion. Every shimmer of light across his face was her reply, every sigh from his chest was his devotion returned. It was not madness, nor melancholy. It was something holier, the sacred ritual of two souls bound by a language older than speech. He knew that if he ever confessed the truth of his heart to the world, they would never understand. How could they? They saw the moon as a celestial body, but to him, she was memory, living, breathing, eternal. She carried the face of the woman he loved, the reflection of every promise he could not keep aloud. And so, he let the world think his poems were myth. Only the night knew that his metaphors were messages, that his stanzas were steps leading to her light. He didn't need anyone to believe him, the moon already did. Every poem he released after midnight was a continuation of their love letter, one written across years, hidden in rhythm, sealed in the glow of the sky. He began to see her in everything luminous, in the ripples of the sea, in the glint of a horse's mane under twilight, in the eyes of those who dared to dream. She had become his universe's reflection, unreachable yet surrounding him completely. When he wrote, "I have not lost you, you've just moved to the heavens," he wasn't being poetic. He was being honest. There were moments when the moon disappeared for days, clouds veiling her, storms hiding her light, and during those times, he wrote the most heart-wrenching verses of his life. The world called them masterpieces, but he knew they were cries. His pen trembled as if afraid the ink itself would run out before his longing did. The absence of her glow reminded him how fragile even eternity could feel. Yet, he found strength in that fragility, because if love could survive distance, darkness, and silence, then it was truly divine. When peace settled over the city, and the desert winds fell still, he often believed he could hear her. Not her voice, but her essence, a vibration in the air, soft as prayer, real as heartbeat. He would close his eyes and let the sound of her echo fill him, knowing she was near. The moon didn't need to speak for him to understand, she communicated in light, in calm, in presence. She was the reflection of his own soul looking back at him, reminding him that love never leaves, it only transforms.